You know, for centuries, the story of America has always been about one thing, arrival. People from all over the world coming to its shores. But what if I told you that story is flipping on its head? Today, a huge number of Americans are packing their bags, and they're not just going on vacation.
Okay, get ready for this number, 18.1 million. That's the estimated number of American digital nomads in 2024. And that's not just a small increase, it's a 147% jump since 2019. We are talking about a massive demographic shift, and it's reshaping our world in real time.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Are these millions of people just giving up on the American dream? Or are they doing something else entirely, forging a new global version of it?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get a profile of who these new global professionals really are. Then, we'll dig into why they're leaving and where they're landing. We'll also uncover the bureaucratic nightmare, the hidden fine print that often comes with this lifestyle. And finally, we'll explore what the future might hold for this whole movement.
So, who exactly are these 18 million people? First thing you got to do is forget that old stereotype of the young, solo backpacker. Today's digital nomad is way more likely to be a highly skilled professional, and sometimes they've got their family right there with them. In fact, they now represent a staggering 11% of the entire U.S. workforce. That's huge.
And this slide right here, it just shatters that old stereotype. The largest group at 47% are millennials in their 30s. We're talking mid-career professionals. And look at this, nearly a quarter are traveling with kids. Plus, more than half are full-time employees, not just freelancers hopping from gig to gig. This has become a mainstream movement.
Okay, so now that we have a better idea of who's leaving, the big question is, why? What is so compelling that it's making all these people leave? Well, it's not one single thing, but a powerful combination of systemic pressures. And this right here illustrates the core economic driver. For a whopping 70% of nomads, it's about making their money go further. A U.S. salary that feels stretched thin in a place like San Francisco or New York can suddenly provide a life of comfort, even luxury, in Lisbon or Medellín. That dream of owning a home, which seems almost impossible back in the States, suddenly becomes attainable somewhere else.
Another huge factor is just escaping the financial anxiety of the American healthcare system. At over $13,000 per person a year, it's the most expensive in the world. For many, moving to a country like Portugal or Spain means trading those crushing premiums and high deductibles for quality coverage that costs less than your monthly phone bill. It's just a massive weight lifted.
And you know, it's not just about financial well-being. People are also looking for a different social and political vibe. Politics is a major driver, but what's fascinating is that people are leaving for different, often opposite reasons. A majority of women are looking for societies they see as safer and more aligned with their values, pointing to things like gun violence and reproductive rights. Meanwhile, a majority of men are looking for lower taxes and less regulation.
So with all those reasons to leave, where are people actually going? Well, they're not just scattering randomly, they're flocking to specific hubs that are actively rolling out the welcome mat with special visas and all sorts of lifestyle perks.
This slide gives you a really practical, at-a-glance look at the financial bar to entry. You can see a clear hierarchy, right? From super accessible options like Colombia to the more expensive European hotspots. And what's surprising here is Mexico, which is actually tightening its rules and pushing its income requirements even higher. But let's be real, the dream destination isn't always a paradise. This massive influx of Americans is creating some real problems on the ground. In Portugal, it's fueled a severe housing crisis. In Mexico City, it's led to intense gentrification and a lot of local backlash. And in Medellín, that rapid growth is putting a huge strain on the city's services. So yeah, each of these destinations comes with its own complex reality.
All right, so this is where the Instagram fantasy crashes into the hard reality of being a digital nomad. It's not all sunshine and beaches. It can get really complicated, especially when it comes to things like taxes, visas, and just corporate rules in general. So this is the first big shock for a lot of Americans. The United States is one of the only countries in the world that taxes based on citizenship, not just where you live. That means you can leave the country, but you absolutely cannot leave the IRS. Your global income is still fair game for U.S. taxes.
And it doesn't even stop at the federal level. Some states are notoriously sticky. Places like California and New York will actively audit former residents, looking for any little excuse to claim you never really left and that you still owe them state taxes on money you earned while living abroad.
So what are they looking for? They call it persistent ties.
And it can be things as simple as keeping your old driver's license, having a local bank account open, or even a gym membership you forgot to cancel. Any of that can be used as evidence that you haven't truly severed ties, and bam, they say you owe them money. The key takeaway here, the tax situation is seriously complex.
So with all these companies demanding that people return to the office, a whole new trend has popped up, the hush trip. This is where employees, especially younger ones, just don't tell their boss they're working from another country. And get this, a stunning 44% of Gen Z workers admit to having done it.
And they have a whole playbook for it. They use VPNs to hide their location, throw out virtual backgrounds on Zoom calls, and are super careful to not post any revealing photos on social media. It's a high-stakes game. While many get away with it, about 7% of those who get caught are fired on the spot.
Okay, for our last section, let's look past those glossy Instagram photos and consider the real-world impact of this movement and where it's all headed.
In many of these host countries, the whole narrative is shifting. Americans who see themselves as adventurous digital nomads are increasingly viewed by locals as economic migrants. Their high purchasing power drives up costs, displaces residents, and has even led to mass protests in places like Spain's Canary Islands, where locals are literally demanding an end to the over-tourism and gentrification.
And there's a personal cost, too. The most cited dark side of this lifestyle is a really profound loneliness. Constantly moving around makes it incredibly difficult to build deep, meaningful relationships. And the data shows that expats and nomads suffer from significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety, mostly due to this lack of a stable community. So, in response to that burnout, we're seeing the rise of Slomadism. Instead of a country hopping every few weeks, people are staying put for several months, maybe even a whole year. This slower pace allows for deeper cultural integration, helps build a real community, and frankly, it's just a more sustainable way to live this life.
And as this lifestyle matures, it's also starting to stratify. As countries raise the income requirements for their visas, the door is closing for a lot of people. The freedom to legally live and work around the world is quickly becoming a privilege that's reserved for a high-earning professional elite.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really provocative question. In an age where your labor is global and your salary can buy a totally different quality of life depending on your location, what do things like citizenship, community, and country even mean anymore?